Hello everybody, this is Kimberly from Starfish Embroidery. I am working on my new pattern, Scrapped Off. This is actually a really easy zipper pouch, but there's a lot of new people out there, so I thought I'd do a video for it. This is really kind of going to be the basis for any zipper on the top pouch that I will come up with, and with some minor variances. Hope the lighting is okay. I am working at night as usual. I kind of have to wait until I get some quality time in with my son. Now he's doing his thing and I'm doing my thing. So this is a cute little scrap buster called Scrapped Off, and it's got cute little corner accents. My colors aren't working really great together tonight, but you guys will just forgive me, right? So I'm just, it is August 14th. I'm still recovering from my injury. I fractured my top of my foot and kind of blew out my knee a little bit. So I'm really still kind of gun shy about going upstairs. So my fabric is wrinkled. It's just stuff I've gotten off D-stash groups. But it'll be fine for the sample, and I'll press it out. So I have two 6-inch squares, front and back, the exterior. Normally I would want to interface these with like SF101 or something like that, but it is what it is. My vinyl doesn't match exactly great, but it's gonna work. So this is Geo Glitter turquoise, I think. And I'm gonna make a quick little cotton D-ring loop instead of using the vinyl. And I think I'll use the gold. Just got these gold lobster rings from my punk. You don't need to use a lobster ring. You can use just ribbon. You can use nothing. You can use a split ring. So there's my supplies. I have my tape. I have some scissors, my design loaded. I've already gone ahead and stitched my placement stitch. This is the 5x5 bag, and disregard my tension. If you've been following me, you know I have issues with this machine and the tension on the stabilizer. So we're going to take our zipper. I have a much too long zipper. It's just, when I got these are actually not the best quality ones. But when I got them, I just get the longest ones. And we're going to lay it down. Now we have 3 lines here. And if you've seen my other bags, normally I do a 3-line zipper. And this would be where you would place the top of the zipper. But that's not the case here. This is the top one. So this is going to be the placement. This is what our general bag size is going to be. This is the bottom of our zipper, and this is the teeth. The middle of the teeth should go right there. And if you look, and I don't know if I can get it really close up, on the back of your zipper there's actually a line that goes right down there. That is the middle of it. That is what you want to line up with, that line. So it takes a few stabs to get it right, but take the time to make it right, and take the time to tape it down, because if you don't, your reveal, here's what we're making. This is a 4x6. So if you don't do it right, the reveal of your zipper is not going to be equal. And you can see, I hope you can see, I actually didn't get mine very well. You see how the bottom has more than the top? So I didn't get it positioned right, because my file, the stitches are exactly a 1/4 inch apart from the center, which brings us to a 1-inch zipper. So I should have approximately just shy of a 1/4 inch of the zipper tape reveal on both sides. But I didn't do it very good. So I'm trying to lay this down here. I'm going to tape off the zipper pull side. I don't want that zipper pull out of my way. I do not want that getting in there. So I tape it on one side first. Okay. Now I'm going to get another piece of tape ready, and I'm actually going to use some long strips And I'm going to, let me put this out of the way a second. Let me grab this long strip that's here. Try and make use of some of this tape and reuse it. So I'm going to gently walk this down and tape the sides so that line is right over that. Now, see, when you're doing this on a sewing machine, you line everything up on the top and you do a basting stitch. Most people, some really expert people who've been doing this for a long time, they can just go ahead and line up their lining, their exterior, and their zipper, and they can do it in one pass. I'm still not that good at doing that, so I still take the time to baste it. So what you would do in a sewing bag is you would put your zipper right side down, then you would put your exterior material and your lining and stitch it. So you have that control with your presser foot of getting it close to that, and you can close to the zipper teeth, and you can control how straight it is. But in the hoop project, you don't have the luxury of doing that. So you need to rely on the digital design to get you there and make sure it's straight. So I've gone ahead and got that all straight. I believe it's straight, and you can actually hold it up to the light behind you and make sure it looks good too. This zipper actually ended up being exactly 1 inch wide, so it does line up with the bottom. Perfect. I'm using this kind of chartreusey green. I don't know if it's going to show up very well. I hope it will. So, and we're going to do this little tack down, and the tack down is, it's kind of a pain because it does mean more stabilizer gets stuck behind the zipper. But my earlier designs, if I didn't do this tack down, I found that the flipping back and forth, it was really hard to keep the zipper straight. So here's your chance to make sure it looks good. And this looks pretty even to me. But if this was coming off at a kilter, like you'll see in my PDF, I have a picture of that. Stop now, tear this out, and redo it while you can. Again, it's a difference of, especially if you're going to try to sell these things, it's a difference of looking like something that was handcrafted versus just handmade. So now we're going to take our, I'm going to take the one that looks the least wrinkled. Actually, I'm going to kind of fussy cut. Which one do I want better in the front? This little guy here. I'm going to save him for the back. I'm going to put this in the front. So I'm going to turn it over to the back first. And we're going to put our lining material down. First piece of our lining. And I'm using this Premier twill from Premier is the brand, I'm sorry. You can buy this at fabric.com. It's a really nice weight. I learned about this from Jessica. Oh my gosh, I just lost her last name. She's in the production bag making group, and she's in Hawaii, and she's just amazing lady, really nice. And I learned about it from her. She actually has one of the one of the weaves she uses as her signature lining, but it has a really nice weight for the lining. So we're going to tape that down, and I'm going to just kind of wing it and make sure this doesn't flip over. You could further tape it down. And likewise, we're going to tape, this is directional, so I need to make sure I'm doing it in the right direction. So lay it down in the right direction and then flip it up. And you want this even with your zipper tape on the bottom. And make sure it's centered over it. Now I just had to rough cut mine, so I'm going to pull it down a little bit over there, over the zipper tape. And again, you're going to tape it down. Sometimes you can get away with not taping it down. It depends on how heavy the material is. Like if you're using vinyl, a lot of times it's heavy enough that you can just kind of not tape it and just kind of hold it off to the side with a pointing device. But I put the needle through my finger once on the multi-needle upstairs, and I got very lucky. It came down on my finger right like this. Hopefully you can see this in the video. Right like that, cut right through it. I am so lucky. It just missed my nail bed by a few, maybe a millimeter. So I'm way more cautious now. I cannot afford to be out of work and not being able to type and do all that. So I'm very cautious. I try to keep my hands away from that needle. These machines are powerful. So I'm taking the tape off and I'm going to fold this down. And remember, we are loosey-goosey back here, but we want to get this taut. So lightly finger press it with your fingernail. If you don't have a fingernail, then just pull it as tautly as you can, and you can press it better when it's all done. And I'm going to go ahead and tape it down. Now, keep in mind where the bracket is. If you have to roll this out of the way to get out of the bracket frame, or the bracket distance there, do so. Bracket distance, you guys knew what I meant, the bracket path. Now this, I'm going to lean this against my bed here, and I'm going to finger press it. And I can tell already these are the cheap zippers and I don't like them. I can see the tape does not look nice and clean, but you know, it's fine for my samples. I have no idea what I'm going to do with these samples. I think I'm going to get some girly products. Okay, everything's taped down. I'm going to run the top stitch now. I saw this, one of my friends shared this idea, and I guess there's those Ipsy bags. I don't know what you get in a makeup or something, samplers. And they filled them up with girly supplies to donate to the junior highs and high schools. So if the girls get caught at school getting their cycle the first time, they can go to the nurse and get one of them. I thought that's such a great idea. I have all these little bags that I've accumulated over the years. So I'm going to think about doing that. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and run our placement stitch. So that's our pretty little top stitch, our little bean top stitch. We're going to run our placement stitch, but we don't want it to go through our lining because we don't want to see that in our lining. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this back up out of the way. But I wanted my lining to be top stitched because only the front gets top stitched, and it just helps to keep it out of the zipper path. Because of the nature of this, the top doesn't get top stitched down. So I want the top stitching where I can get it. Okay, I'm going to put this back on here, and I'm going to run the placement stitch for my accent panels. And you do need to be mindful of where your machine, how it rotates and so forth. I feel like I'm forgetting something all of a sudden. I don't know what. Okay. So I've run that accent, the line there and there. Now I'm going to lay these, the long edge of the vinyl, and make sure it's centered over there. I cut these very generously. I'm upside down. We're doing this right. We're doing this one. This one is right side up. The others, where's the other one? The non-applique. So this is the applique, and this is the non-applique. So the non-applique you would view upside down, but the applique we're doing this way. Oh, that was what I was going to say. We need some extra cutaway to put underneath this because that satin stitching can cut through the vinyl. And I know from my experience with Geo Glitter, it will cut through the vinyl. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down a little bit because I made them way too long, just so they will overlap easily. Don't throw those scraps away. I actually had a really good idea today. Remember, if you've seen my other video for making those cute little fobs with scrap vinyl, I thought I had another idea of making one even smaller to use as a zipper pull. So what I want to do is I want to overlap this line by about 1/8 of an inch. See, I'm going to show it here. That's where I'm going to leave it. Just so it's stuck down there so I know it's going to get totally secured. So you do both sides, overline it, and you can look on the back and make sure you're going to cover your back, your original placement line. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down, tape it in place, because we don't want this to move around when we're trying to put this top stitch down. Or I said top stitch, this placement. This is going to be the basting stitch now. That's going to hold this in place while we trim it. And then it'll do the satin stitch. So again, make sure it's covering over there by, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to put a little piece of tape right there because I know with my machine, if it hits that little juncture right there that's sticking up, it's going to get stuck. So this is the transport tape, and it's pretty easy to get out if it gets stuck between your stitching. So this is what I'm talking about right here. If I didn't put that in there, I know my machine, the foot would get stuck there. So now we're gonna run the tack down, and it's gonna tack down the diagonal line that we're gonna trim. Oh, my thread is almost coming out. It's gonna tack down the diagonal line we're gonna trim, and then it's gonna tack it down on the sides. And I do a beam because if you accidentally cut into it, it won't unravel the entire stitch for you. See, and I have to be careful there. That's what I'm talking about. That I wasn't prepared for that, and that could have gotten caught in there. Now is the time you need your applique scissors. Oops. I lifted this up because it was going to get caught in there. These are the Kai ones, and as much as I love Kai, I'm actually not. These are not my favorite. The Ginger Duckbill are the best that I've had so far. These are just not curved up enough. Okay, we can go ahead and remove all the tape now because we went ahead and stabilized this on the sides. So we don't need any of this extra tape. And this is actually the first time I've used the Geo, I think, with the Transport. So I'll be curious to see how it sticks, because I've noticed that the Transport does leave a little bit of residue on some of the vinyls. But you know, it's all of them have a positive and a drawback. The Transport positive is it works much better on cloth than the pink tape does, because the Transport actually comes off and you can reuse it a whole bunch of times. The pink tape leaves less residue on the... I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape out while I'm thinking of it. And I'm just throwing tape all over my machine, but it did, I don't know if you can see that, but there is a tiny little bit of residue there. So hopefully it won't show too much. So I'm going to try and scrape that up. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and trim out as close to this bean as I can. I'm going to be full disclosure with you here right now. This is not my favorite style of bag. I much prefer this style because you don't have to worry about trimming it too close. As close as I trimmed this, I still didn't get all the vinyl. But a lot of people like this style. It's easier to estimate your scraps because you can kind of put the placement down and look at the back placement line and estimate how big of a square you need, or triangle, Kimberly. So in a way, it's a little bit easier to estimate, but you need to really get it trimmed really well so that it's all covered when you do your satin stitching. And that's a piece that I'm just not that great about, and I'm just not a big fan of this kind of applique. And with the vinyl, a lot of times, see what the issue is, it's hard to get under here straight up and down with any scissors. The Ginger duckbill are better. So I'm going to show you what I mean, and this is what makes it so hard to do the vinyl. So I'm going to stand up so I can make sure I'm showing you in the camera. So hopefully you won't see my big old body here, but it's okay. So, and it might be hard because the shimmer of it, but oh, I'm not gonna be able to get it. It's just too dark in here. I'm sorry. Let me try and move this light over this way. See if we can get some more light. Maybe if you see the white edge there, it's hard to get straight up and down on that edge. So what happens is you end up getting a slight bevel into the white backing of the vinyl, and when the needle starts perforating that, it ends up pushing it out. So it's really, really hard to get it trimmed even enough without so that it gets covered with the satin stitch. Now I did increase the satin stitch on this from my first trial, and I'm hoping that'll help cover it up better. But There's a drawback to this design. So you need to be as close to this as you can get it, because you need to compensate for that bevel edge. And I'm coming back over here because I can see there's way too much of it, and I'm afraid it might show and pull out when I do the satin stitching. So don't cut into your fabric. Whatever you do, make sure you're not cutting into your fabric underneath. Okay, I think that's going to be good enough for me. And now on the edges here, this is going to end up getting caught in the seam allowance, but I'm just going to trim it out about 1/8 inch away, because it's going to get trimmed. So this does make for a little bit thicker seam on the bottom, but I think it's okay because it's just a really cute design that just gives a little punch to it, to the little pouch. And you can use these for anything. I mean, this pattern is going to have 4 sizes. I originally was going to do 3 sizes, and then I decided the 5x5 would be cute too. So it's 4x4, 4x6, 5x5, and 5x7. Scrapped off. My Etsy site is Starfish Embroidery. Starfish Designs was already taken. So Starfish Embroidery is my Etsy shop, and I will probably put a link to it down here. If you're watching this video soon, it'll be an intro price, but my prices are pretty reasonable, and I have sales frequently. So okay, so we got it all trimmed. I'm trying this new thing with the pins because the stabilizer tries to pull out of here. And again, make sure that you still have your lining out of the way down there. Oh, and I almost forgot. Okay, so I'm going to take some of this cutaway and I'm going to put it underneath there, because again, the satin stitching, and it's right here is where it's going to be. So I'm just going to cut a big piece that's going to fit underneath there, and then I just save the pieces that are left over. So floating means I'm just going to slide it underneath the hoop after I put the hoop out there. Floating just means adhering it so it's not pinned within the hoop. If you hooped poly mesh stabilizer, like is suggested in the pattern, then just add another piece of poly mesh stabilizer. Now, I wish I would have used a different stabilizer, because this stabilizer is going to stay inside the pouch, and it can make it a little bit stiffer. So hopefully this increased beam or satin, I increased it to 3.5 millimeters, and I hope that will help cover it up a little bit better. It's not significant, but you can see here, now this is that printed vinyl, faux vinyl, and it is more apt to cut apart because it does have a slight backing on it, fibrous, but otherwise it's just compressed material, and it's not enough. If you are going to use this, I would highly recommend you fusing SF101 to the back of it, and it's going to give you a better outcome. This is not exactly the right color of blue, but it's okay. While it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and fold up for my D-ring. So for the D-ring, I have a 3" by 3" square. It's actually a little bit bigger because I have the selvage on there. Just fold it in half and finger press it. You don't need to iron it. Then open it up and finger press it inside to that center. And again, fold it into the center and finger press it. Okay, I want to keep an eye and make sure it's not going to get stuck on anything. Okay, it's good. And then likewise on the other side. Now normally you would go to your sewing machine and top stitch this, but even though I have a sewing machine downstairs here, it's not really set up to use. So normally you would top stitch on both sides, but I'm just going to wing it. And then you fold it in half and put it through your lobster clasp. I'm going to fold this the other way because it's not even. And mine's a little bit generous, but I'm just going to leave it like that. And then I think I'm going to put a rivet in here since I didn't sew it. when we're all done. And if you have a little clip, I had a clip here somewhere, you can just go ahead and hold it together with the clip. I'm just going to put this pin in it to hold it out of the way. Now we want the D-ring connector to go all the way through the lining for added security. So when this is done, we're going to pull our lining down before we add the D-ring. Alright, so it's in position now to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the tape. First I'm going to tear away this extra cutaway. And that really added a lot of body to the pouch. I can just see by looking at the bobbin thread on the back how much it really helped. And don't throw these scraps away. I save these scraps and I tuck them in here whenever I need a little bit extra help. Now if you want, you could tear out this extra tearaway right now, and if you're very, very careful and you tape down your backing, you could get away with that. So you would just go ahead and get your scissors in here, your seam ripper. My seam ripper is not working, guys. This beautiful one I got on some Facebook group, it's not staying one out. It just made a liar out of me. Yesterday it wasn't staying in there. But so you would just get in here and very carefully pull out the stabilizer. Don't tear your fabric underneath. But if you pull it up, you can get a groove in there. Make sure you're not touching your fabric. And just pull out that, tear out that stabilizer. We're not adding any other embroidery to this, so I feel like this is actually pretty safe for us to do. And just tear it against that, and that way it's not stuck inside there, especially since this is fabric. If you're using vinyl, it's not as important because the vinyl is already pretty firm. But if you're using fabric, you really don't want that extra paper in there, because it's going to take away from, I'm making sure I'm not cutting through I put my finger underneath to make sure I wasn't cutting into the fabric. And then you can actually just kind of rub it right along here. Make sure the ball's on top. And I can see it now in the shadow, so it's underneath the fabric. And then just carefully tear it out. And it'll just help take and make sure it's not all firm. Now, like I said, I'm going to start moving over to using polymesh fusible, not fusible, but just polymesh cutaway. Cutaway is the word I'm looking for my in the hoop bags, because it's softer underneath. And I like the Pellon 360 as well, but that can be a little bit difficult to get out of the seams. It leaves behind a little bit of jaggedness. So see how much already you can see, and because my lining covers this so much, once I tape my lining back down, it's going to take and support this. So even though I'm tearing out stabilizer, the lining will help support where I tore out the stabilizer. But again, I'm not doing any other embroidery on this. Now, if you were doing more embroidery, this is the step you would do that at. Okay, so now it's all done, and I'm going to go ahead and tape this down. I want it taped in place because now it's going to support that stabilizer I just took out. So this is going to bond with that stabilizer and keep it safe. But if you were adding extra embroidery here, you would have do that before you fold your lining down. Okay, great. So now we're going to go ahead and run the stitch for our D-ring. And always make sure, take a peek underneath, that your lining has stayed nice. And I can see right now I have a little bit of a situation here. This is puckering up right here. And it's going to come around here, and my presser foot's going to get stuck there. So I'm going to reposition my tape over here for my zipper pull and cover that and make sure that I have a little bridge there that my presser foot is going to be able to get over and not get caught. And actually that zipper pull is trying to sting down now too. So get that out of our way. Now we're going to do our D-ring strip. And you actually don't even need to put a lobster claw on it. You can wait until you're done and add a split ring in between at the end. Okay. Now I'm going to tear this tape a little bit because I did get it right there in that stitch area. And I'm still going to leave it here though. I need that bridge. Okay, so right there is our little placement, and I'm going to go ahead and get a nice piece of tape to cover this, and we want to make sure you're covered past that by at least a ½ inch. I'm going to leave a little bit longer than I normally would because like I said, I'm going to put a D-ring. I'm going to put a rivet in this little closure since I didn't stitch that closed. So make sure it's falling along the line of your top stitching. And if you need to put an extra piece of tape there to keep that D-ring from globbing around, do it, because we don't, or I said D-ring, the lobster clasp. We don't want that getting hung up in our machine. Now I have this Janome and I have my thread trimming on. So I know she gets all over and wonky all over the place, so I'm going to keep an eye on her and pull this presser foot up as soon as she's done stitching. Oops, that was almost too soon. Okay, so what just happened is my machine merged those two colors, and I forgot to check and make sure how many colors I had first. That should have been a separate step right there. So now I've cut into my zipper. Don't want to do that yet. So make sure you check and make sure you have 13 stitches on your machine. So what that should have done was gone up to here and come over. Shouldn't have cut through the zipper, but it merged the colors, so it traveled as a result. So I'm going to go ahead and change that color to be drastically different color so that the machine won't do that. And that's my fault for not checking before I started. But it's no harm, no foul. Just get your seam ripper in here and pull out those stitches if that happens to you. You just need to pull them right out of that zipper. And then pull your zipper pull down and make sure you cleared it. But it'll come out. You know, I gotta go in, there's gotta be a setting to turn that off because I don't want my machine color sorting for me. I must have something enabled to do that. Alright, I'm just testing my zipper. I'm leaving my zipper out of the way. Yep, it's still good. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and leave this tape in there. So we have our D-ring connected. Now we're ready to put on our back and our front. So we're gonna go ahead and turn this over and put our exterior. Did I seriously just do this wrong? I want my chevrons to go in the same direction. I have the pieces cut. I have random samples here, and so the pieces are cut, so I don't know if I have enough for it to go in the same direction. Oh, I think I'm gonna have just enough. Ooh, I got lucky there. Otherwise my chevrons would be going this way. Okay, so I got lucky. So I'm going to go ahead and align this. Since it's a lined bag, we can be straight on with our zipper. And you have to kind of look through your because we don't have that zipper placement line here. You need to look through your stabilizer and see that zipper. And we don't have it because we want to take as much advantage of the top of the hoop spacing in that 4x4 bag as we can. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this down on both sides. Again, pay attention to where your frame connection is, your hoop connection, and if you need to roll up material and get it out of your way, do that. Okay, and then we're going to take our back and we're going to put that down. Now remember, our back is going to go this way on the back. So in order for it to be the right direction, we need to turn it upside down. Actually, we're going to start it with it down here, and then we're going to tape over it. So in order to be right, we need it, so if we're going to flip it over in the back, it's going to be right side up. So in this case, I have to think about it. Yep, so in this case, if you put it wrong side material down, but the direction is this way, up that way, it'll be right when you turn it over to the back. Okay, and again, I'm going to get some more tape. I have tape all over my machine here. And tape that down. Make sure it's at the top of your zipper and make sure it's even across. Center it across your fabric. Give it a little bit of tautness. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and run the next step. See, that even hurt. I don't even have my needle down, and that presser foot hit me. And ooh, get those scissors out of the way, Kimberly. That could have been scary. Now this is going to do 2 sets of stitches because see what it does? I'm lucky it didn't get caught on that lobster clasp. I wasn't paying attention. Because we're normally would have 2 sets of stitches, and this is going to take a lot of weight, a lot of this is going to take a lot of pressure being in the back, so we want it to be secure. So I do 2 rows. So this is going to stay down now. We don't need to worry about it. We can remove this tape. But we don't want to stitch through the lining on the back yet. So we need to move this out of the way because we're going to turn our bag on the back. So we need to leave a turning hole. And right now we're going to go ahead and flip this over. And again, I'm going to lightly finger press. Oh, I didn't get that good. That could be a problem. I'm going to tape this down right here just because I want that to stay out of my way. All right. Make sure it's up, out of your way. Okay, we're going to open up our zipper now. Move it all the way over, about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way over. This is a small pouch, so I'm actually about 2/3 of the way over. Fold this down. And now I'm going to use a few pieces of tape, and you actually, because I cut this enough, I could actually probably pin it if it's out of the seam area. Because I want this to stay kind of taut, I am going to go ahead and grab a pin and put it right down here in this, out of the seam area. And you can look underneath there and make sure, and this is a flathead pin. And then likewise, I'm going to make sure it's tight over here. And see how this is pushing down in there already? I'm not a big fan of this hoop. And make sure it's evenly displaced across this. And then it's going to stitch from just about here all the way over. We can't stitch right to the top because we don't want to catch the lining in it. And I'm going to pull the lining back up because it came loose. Slide that underneath, and we're going to keep an eye out. Now, if you were doing vinyl, at this point, you need to move to a 90-14 needle because it's a lot of layers to go through. Now, I'm going to keep an eye out and make sure, yep, I'm good there. I don't want to hit that pin. And also, you could get one of your little poking devices or something to hold the material. Almost done. And by using vinyl, I mean if your whole bag is vinyl, not just the accents. All right, there we go. So we're done. We're leaving this like it is. We don't need to do anything else up here. Now we just need to remove this tape. Now is a good time to actually tear out the zipper stabilizer. So carefully get your seam ripper or your good scissors and get under here and tear this out. It's just easier to do it now when you have the hoop tautness. I learned that trick from Ricky Gardner, String Theory Fabric Art, and actually that's what I need to do this weekend. I'm behind. I need to make some Christmas ornaments for the July exchange. They were supposed to be mailed to my friends on the 1st, but I got behind because all my craft stuff is upstairs. So I actually went the other day and bought some new felt to make them. I'm making String Theory when she has her big sales. Whenever she gets the next 1,000 members, she has a big 50% off sale, and she has a whole bunch of freebies that are on her site, but they're only available then. So I got all the cookie cutters, gingers. They're so adorable. She's such an artist. I'm not that good of an artist. I know how to do engineer things, but I'm not as great about making stuff that's pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. And again, I want to tape it. And actually, it is long enough to cover from that pin in the front. So I'm going to flip it over and reposition that pin that I know it's out of the way to catch the lining too. That way it's nice and taut. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this down. And he's going to stitch all the way around, leaving an opening on the bottom. And I back stitch. Now I know some of my fans have told me they prefer the rounded corners, and it's kind of hard to push out the corners when it's square, but for this pattern I wanted this square. Just the rounded corners, just we're not going to give the same effect with the vinyl. Okay, and now this is our last step, because the next step is just to prevent our hoop from coming back to the center and getting stuck. So we're all done. So before we unhoop it, we want to make sure and turn around the back and make sure we did not mess anything up. And I got really close with that top there. I didn't line it up very well. You see that? So here's our opening to turn it. So everything is good there. So we can remove all of our pins now. I'm not sure how good of a job that pin thing did, because I did feel the stabilizer coming down on the sides. Get rid of all your tape. Save whatever you can reuse. I think this is all pretty much gone. Okay, unhoop and tear away your stabilizer. Okay, so it'll actually tear away pretty easily because we cut out that piece down at below. And my little trash bin is behind me. I finally learned after almost 2 years of doing this to have a tiny trash bin right handy, so I can throw everything right in it. And we're going to go ahead and trim everything out. I'm going to leave this zipper tape about a ½ inch past. Same with this connector, because it takes a lot of pressure. And that way we're assured that our zipper is going to stay nice and snug. So I like to start on the back bottom so I can put the notch in here. So I'm going to go ahead and leave about a ½ inch until I get to the notch. When I get to the notch, I'm going to angle it up like that, and then I'm going to leave ½ inch. Go over, angle down, and now ½ inch. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and pull my zipper out of the way and just do the lining on this side first, and then I'm going to flip it around and do the exterior. This way I know I'm not going to cut off my zipper. Oops, I got really close there. Pay attention, Kimberly. When you're using cloth, a lot of bag makers now are saying to trim stuff at 1/8 of an inch, and I'm like, no. When you are using cloth, you need a ½ inch, because if you trim it at 1/8 of an inch and that seam comes open, you have nothing to recover with. Now I don't need this much of these two, so I'm going to trim it down to about ½ inch. All right, let me pinch this stuff real quick. And the same over here. I'm going to leave that about ½ inch. So I'm going to just pull this zipper out of the way and trim the exterior to the ½ inch. If you need to get a ruler out and a pen and mark it, go ahead and do that. But I started in quilting, so I've been doing this for a long time, so I can eyeball a ½ inch and 1/8 of an inch really easily. All right. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because it's going to be buried inside. Now I don't need quite that much zipper tape again, so I'm going to trim it a little bit out of the way. Now we want our corners to be trimmed off. Don't trim into the zipper tape, just trim the fabric if you can. It just give us a better thing. down here, if you go ahead and trim in, slightly angle it, and then curve off that corner, trim in, curve off the corner, trim in, you see what I did? And take away a little bit of that bulk in that corner. It'll help make your corner turn. Now we don't need our exterior material longer for our lining turning, so we're going to go ahead and trim that and get the bulk out of there. Trim that down to a 1/4 inch. Right, there we go. So we have our notch to turn it with and close it, and everything's trimmed. So reach inside here, and we're going to go ahead and pull it all the way out. It's a pretty, actually that turning hole turned out okay. So we're going to be pulling this lining side out first. We're turning it inside out to the lining. And you can go ahead and leave the lining undone now until you finish the whole bag, or you can go ahead and get your double stick tape, your needle and thread, or your fabric glue and close that lining right now. I'm not going to do that because I cleaned the other day and I have no idea what I did with my double stick tape. So push up and push everything out. Okay, and then what you would do is, I like to get in here while the lining is still inside out and push everything out. I find if I push it out now with the lining on the outside and push all those corners, when I turn the final bag inside out, it makes it so much easier. And then you'll just, I like to keep, see the stitches right here, so I like to put my tape here, fold this in, and that vinyl is working against me right now, so you have to kind of play with it because we have that little bit of vinyl there. And then fold this in, and I put my tape there, and then you can tape it closed. So now I have this all done. I'm going to open up the zipper the rest of the way and then turn it right side out again. Now we're right side out. And get inside and push all those corners out. And this is the time when you have a bamboo stick. I usually have those rounded over hemostats that I've misplaced, but something like that to help get in there. Even this little turning, it's not turning tool, boning tool will get in there and help push those corners out. If you get in here behind the zipper where it's not all the way over it and push your finger like this, you can pop open that little corner there. See that? All right, this side doesn't really need popped too much because it's already, this zipper is into the seam. So I just pull it a little bit, and then if you pull your zipper across, that way you help take it or help make it neat. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that last tape off, and I have some trimming to do. I missed a few jump strings here. Okay. And you would go ahead and press this from the back because we don't want to press the vinyl. But see, when I did that extra trim, it helped get those corners out really nice and neat. And this feels really flimsy because I didn't put any interfacing. But I'm going to put this little pokey thing in here and try and poke that corner out down there a little bit better. I think it's good. And oh, I got lucky. The satin stitching covered up that area where I had that little bit of leftover tape. So this is absolutely adorable. I will press it upstairs carefully once I am able to get up there. And did I do a good job? I gotta take my glasses off because I can't see. Ah, I did. You can't see any of the vinyl. And because I used that cutaway, again, I want to try and get closer in here for you to see, because the Geo Glitter is more prone to getting the cutting into the vinyl. So can you see? It's really nice. It's not cut or anything. It's just adorable. I think the color works okay. It's not exactly the same color. Let me close my laptop and put this light over here and see if you can see a little better. Can you see better now? Oh, isn't that cute? So somebody who likes, are these foxes? Cats? I don't know what they are. Are they supposed to be? I think they're raccoons or something. Somebody's going to like this little pouch, and it's a cute one to put change in, and I'm going to put a rivet here, and it'll be cute. So fully lined inside. All right, that's all for you guys today. I might as well put these all three here so you can see this series. Get a look for what it looks like from the various materials. I will do the video. Actually, I did a live video for this one in the Facebook group. So if you go to the units, that one's there. And then here's this for the applique version. And I hope you guys like it. If you like my stuff, be sure to subscribe. Oh wait, Grayson's got to give you the final. He waited up for his bedtime to give you the final.
And please subscribe, slap the bell, and to get notifications. And I should say, slap the little bell.
Can you say it again, Grayson, but in a little bit louder voice, because I could barely hear you. So I'm
bell!
not sure. No, not in a loud, screaming voice, but in a little bit louder. Can you tell them what are they going to do?
Subscribe and slap
Subscribe.
And slap the bell and hit the like button. If you hit the thumbs down button, you get a thumbs down button. If we don't know who you are, we're going to search you up. You have to tell us who you are. Thumbs down you get. Bye-bye.
He's been watching way too much of the YouTube videos. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good night.